The Kingdom of My Divine Will in the Midst of Creatures. Book of Heaven, Volume 31, Part 1. JMJ. Fiat. In voluntate Dei. July 24th, 1932. How Jesus, with His Word, generates His sanctity, goodness, and so forth in the creature. Volleys of love to place her at His level and in a contest with Him. My most sweet life, Jesus, my celestial teacher, take my little soul in your hands, and if you want, continue your divine lessons on your will. I feel the extreme need to be nourished by your word. After all, you yourself have accustomed me in this way. You yourself have given me this form of life. You have made me live of you and of your sweet word. Certainly I have not formed this way of living myself. No, but you did, O Jesus, so much so that I would feel you more than myself. And as you remain silent, I feel this life break in me. And even though it is the hardest of my martyrdoms, yet I am ready, if you want to stop your speaking, to say, Fiat, Fiat, Fiat. But have pity on me, and do not leave me alone and abandoned. Then I was feeling all abandoned in the arms of the divine will, and I longed for nothing but heaven. It seems to me that there is nothing left for me to do other than conclude my life in the divine will on earth, to then start it again in heaven. And my celestial Jesus, visiting my little soul, told me, my little daughter of my will, you oppress yourself too much, and I do not want it. Seeing you oppressed in the midst of so many goods of mine, you show that you have your eye more on yourself than on the goods that your Jesus has given you. And by this, you show that you have not yet comprehended well the gifts and the goods that your Jesus has given you. You must know that each word of mine is gift, and therefore a great good contained in it. In fact, my word possesses the creative, communicative, formative virtue, and as it is pronounced by us, so it forms the new good to give to the creature. See, for as many words as I have spoken to you, and as many truths as I have made known to you, so many gifts did I give you. And these gifts enclose divine goods, one distinct from the other. Everything is in whether the word comes out of us, in which the good that we want to issue from ourselves is formed. Once this good has come out, with certainty it will have its life in the midst of creatures, because these gifts are animated and formed by our creative power, and are preserved inside our own word, to ensure the good that we want to give. And our word will move heaven and earth to give the fruit of the good it possesses. Now, my daughter, you must know another surprise of our speaking. Suppose that I speak to you about my sanctity. This word of mine encloses the gift of the divine sanctity to be given to the creature, always as much as it is possible for a creature. If I speak about divine goodness, my word encloses the gift of goodness. If I speak about the divine will, it encloses the gift of our will. In sum, whatever our word says, beautiful, good, great, holy, that is the gift it encloses. Now, listen to a trait of our loving stratagems. It is as if we were never content in forming new inventions of love to give to the creature. So if our word says sanctity, it is because we want to give the gift of our divine sanctity, so that she may be placed at the same level with our sanctity, and may compete with us. And oh, our contentment when we see our divine sanctity operating in the creature, and we hear her say, "I feel impressed within me the sanctity of my Creator. Oh, how happy I feel to be able to love Him with His own sanctity." Oh, then our love comes to follies, and pours upon her in such an exuberant way that we reach the excesses. In the same way, if our word says goodness, divine will, it is because we want to give the gift of our goodness and divine will, that she may be at the same level with our goodness and will, and may keep up the contest with her supreme being. You cannot comprehend what our contentment is in seeing the creature endowed with these divine qualities of ours, of which our word is the bearer. And since it is our usual way to direct our word to one creature, our word is yet so fecund, powerful, and full of light as to act like the sun, formed by one of our words, which in one blow of light illuminates all, and gives the good that the light possesses. Now, why do you oppress yourself, if you see that your Jesus often makes use of His word to add gifts upon gifts? And these gifts will have life not only in you, but in many other creatures, because they possess the generative virtue. They give and generate, to then give and generate again. Our word is a birth from our womb. Therefore it is our daughter, and as daughters, they carry the good that they have generated in their father. So instead of oppressing yourself, think, rather, that your Jesus wants to give you the new surprises of His divine words, so that you dispose yourself to receive such a great good. After this, I continued to think about the divine will, and my most sweet Jesus added, "My daughter, when the soul lets herself be dominated, invested, subdued by my divine will, in such a way that each particle of her being, both in the soul and in the body, all of them possess my will operating. So the mind possesses it animated by its science. The voice possesses its speaking. The hands possess it operating. The feet possess its divine steps. The heart possesses it loving, and in the way my will knows how to love. Now, all this, united together, forms the divine sanctity in the creature. Then do we find all our rights in the creature, rights of creation, because everything is ours. we find the rights of our sanctity, of our works, the rights of our divine fiat, of our goodness, of our love. In sum, there is nothing of our own that we do not find in her as our right. And the creature finds, in return, her rights in her Creator, because one being the will on both sides, the rights of one are the rights of the other. Hear, then, what it means to live in our will, to receive our sanctity, our love, science, goodness, by right, because we cannot do without giving them to her, since they are her own properties, just as they belong to our fiat, because her life already lives in it. More so, since one who lives in my will grows always in our sanctity, in our love, in our beauty, and so forth. This continuous growing forms in the creature a new act to give to her Creator. We give to her the new act that we possess by nature, and she gives it to us by virtue of our will. And oh, the contentment on both sides, the happiness we feel in being able to receive from the creature, and for us to be able to give. Giving and receiving maintains the nourishment of the correspondence, preserves the ever-growing union, and is like the blowing breath that keeps the fire always ignited and the flame of love alive, with no danger that it might be extinguished. Therefore, always forward in my will, and everything will go well. Fiat. August 7th, 1932. How the light of the divine will makes all other things lose life, gives divine freshness, and one who lives in it is confirmed in good and acquires the right of citizen of heaven. I am in the arms of the divine will, though under the press of the privations of my most sweet Jesus. Without him, hours are centuries, days are interminable. And oh, how sadly I miss his sweet and lovable presence, and I feel all the hardness of my long exile. But while I moan and sigh, the divine fiat makes its light flow over my sorrow, and mitigating it, it makes me flow within the eternal waves of its acts, to unite mine with its own, and make them one. It seems to me that it does not even give me the time to feel sorry for being without he who loves me so much, and whom I love. Its light imposes itself on everything. It eclipses and absorbs everything. It wants everything for itself. Nor does it permit one to lose time even on the holiest things, which is the privation of Jesus. But while I was swimming in the sea of sorrow, my dear life, only like a flash that escapes, visiting my little soul, told me, "Good daughter, courage. Let yourself be guided by the light of my divine will, which shall know how to convert the sorrows, the pains, my very privations, into perennial peace, and into divine conquests." The nature of its light is eclipsing, corroborating, fortifying, and wherever its light reaches, sorrow loses strength and life, and it changes it into conquests and into joys. because the strength of its light surpasses everything. And there, where it takes its place, all other things lose life. And if before the light of my divine will one feels other effects and desires, it means that the fullness of its light is not full in the soul, nor does it reign in her in an absolute way. Its kingdom is absolute kingdom, not conditioned. Therefore, it has the supreme right to absorb everything, to make all other things lose life, and to convert everything into divine will. You must know that each time the creature does her acts in my will, a beneficial dew pours upon her, which preserves in her the divine freshness, and gives her the opium to everything that does not belong to it. And oh, how beautiful it is to see her always fresh in her acts, fresh in her love, in her sorrow, in active waiting to receive its due, so as to receive the opium in it, in order to convert the sorrow into sweet conquest of divine will. Freshness renders one lovable, attractive, whether a person or an object. No one likes old things, and this is why I love so much one who lives in my divine will, because I feel in her our divine freshness, our sweet fragrances. In some, she gives of our own, and your Jesus encloses this beloved creature in his heart, and I keep forming her, raising her, all from my will. So this noble cohort of the children of my will shall be formed in my most holy heart, like many little queens, daughters of the great King. Then, continuing in my state of oppression, because of the privations of my sweet Jesus, I was thinking to myself, yet, even though I am without the one who is more than my own life for me, still I feel a profound peace, nor do I fear anything, or have any worry that it might be my fault that celestial Jesus deprives me of himself, nor do I have any fear that I might get lost. In my little soul I feel nothing other than a placid sea, such that, though it murmurs, its murmuring is yet nothing other than "I love you." And this little "I love you" of mine asks you for nothing other than the coming of the kingdom of your will upon earth. And without ever ceasing to murmur, very often I form my little waves, so as to get away from my exile and storm heaven, to enclose myself in my celestial fatherland. But no, in vain. My waves fall back into my sea, and I continue placidly to murmur, "I love you, I love you." And I engage heaven and earth to ask you for your fiat. But while my mind was speaking nonsense, my highest good, Jesus, clasping me in his arms, all tenderness, told me, "My newborn of my will, it seems that you are looking for some way how to trouble yourself. But I do not want it. I do not want storms in the sea of your soul, but perennial peace. The storms, that is, worries, fears, doubts, these storms, would prevent the continuous murmuring of your placid I love you, that must always run and murmur to conquer your Creator, that he may send his will to descend upon earth in order to let it reign. Now you must know that for one who lets herself be dominated by my will and lives in it, evils lose life. The fear of offending me, the worries, the disturbances, lose the seed to be reborn. The soul and the body remain confirmed in good. She finds herself in the conditions of the blessed, for whom evil has no more life, because in those celestial regions, in my will, evil absolutely cannot enter. So one who lives in it can be called and acquires the right of citizen of heaven. And if she finds herself on earth, she is like a citizen lost from the celestial fatherland, kept there by my divine will for its great designs, and for the good of miserable humanity. But even though she is on earth, she does not lose the right to be citizen of heaven, or to live with the same properties of the celestial fatherland. And although she feels as if lost, yet by right she must possess heaven in her soul, to live not of earth, but of heaven. Ah, the living in my will calls heaven upon earth, and its light writes on her forehead with indelible characters: perennial love, imperturbable peace, confirmation of all goods, daughter of the Supreme Being. Therefore always in my will do I want you, that you may enjoy the properties of your celestial fatherland, which are continuous love, highest peace, and divine will as life of all the blessed. Fiat. August 14th, 1932. One who does not live in the divine will finds herself in the conditions of those who remain idle before the light of the sun. One who lives in it possesses the most holy Trinity in act. I was thinking about the divine will, and how for one who lets herself be dominated by it, giving it full dominion, all rights are hers, and everything that others obtain out of pity, out of mercy, by the goodness of God, she obtains by right. By right she obtains sanctity, because what dominates her is holy, and has the virtue of transforming soul and body into sanctity, into goodness, into love. So all the victories, the conquests, the rights are hers, and as the owner, she storms heaven. What a great difference between one who lives in the divine will and one who lives of human will! But while I was thinking of this, my adorable Jesus, repeating his short little visit, told me, "Blessed daughter, the difference between one and the other is great and incalculable. For one who does not live in my will is like the sun for those who remain idle. As much as it invests them with its light and darts through them with its heat, they do nothing, they learn nothing, and earn nothing, and they render the light of the sun sterile for them. And since they are there doing nothing, they get tired. They get bored with the light itself, and they seek darkness as rest for their unhappy sloth. On the other hand, for one who works, the light is operative. It is light for the eye, to let her look at what she has to do. In fact, for as much light as she may have outside, if her eye does not have the life of light, the light that surrounds her will be of no good for her. And if she does not have the external light, no good will come to her from having the life of light in her eye. My paternal goodness has placed such union of accord between the external light that the creature can have and that of her eye, so much so that one cannot operate without the other. Light for her hands if she wants to work, if she wants to write, if she wants to read, and so forth. So, the first operating role in the creature is assumed by the light. Without it, it would be difficult for her to do nearly any good, and earn for herself a crust of bread in order to live. Now, such is the light of my will for one who does not live in it. My will invests and exists for all, but is not operative, nor dominating in the act of the creature. With all its light, she remains idle. She learns nothing of the divine, nor does she make any conquest. And the most beautiful things tire her and bore her. The will that wants to live in mine is like the eye full of light, which becomes capable of unifying itself with the light of my will. And as they place themselves in accord with each other, they do and form prodigious labors and works, such as to astonish heaven and earth. See, then, what it means to live in my will, not remaining idle. The little light of the soul placing itself in accord with the light of the eternal Fiat, to render it operating in her acts, and therefore form the inseparability between one and the other. Then the crowd of thoughts on the divine will continued in my mind, and my celestial Jesus added, "Blessed daughter, my will produces light in the soul. The light generates the knowledge. Light and knowledge love each other, and they generate love. So, there, where my supreme will reigns the sacrosanct Trinity in act. Our adorable divinity is led by nature in an irresistible way, without ever interrupting, to generate continuously, and the first generative act we do within ourselves. The Father generates me continuously, and I, his Son, feel continuously generated in him. The celestial Father generates me and loves me. I am generated, and I love him. And from one and the other proceeds love. In this generative act, without ever ceasing, are enclosed all our admirable knowledges, our secrets, our beatitudes, the times, our dispositions, our power and wisdom, everything that eternity encloses, in one single generative act that forms the whole entirety of our divine being. Now, it seems that this reciprocal love of ours, which forms the third person of our Supreme Being, inseparable from us, is not content with our generative act within ourselves, but wants to generate outside of us, in the souls. And behold, we entrust the task to our will animated by our love, to descend into souls and go to form our divine generation with its light. But it can do this in one who lives in our will. Outside of it, there is no place to form our divine life. Our word would not find the hearing to let itself be listened to, and as our knowledges would be missing, love would not find the substance in order to generate. And here is our most holy Trinity, messed up in the creature. Therefore, be attentive in listening to what this light wants to tell you, so as to give it the field for its generative act. Fiat. You have reached the end of the Book of Heaven, Volume 21, Part 1. Fiat.